Johnny's looking awful tall today.
Yeah,
Football taller.
kind of ugly it up too.
Poor Johnny. I'll raise it and make a motion to approve that with the exception.
Exception.
Ready?
I just said.
Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call the regular council meeting to order. I'd remind you to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate, and then please let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Amanda, would you go ahead and take the roll, please?
Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Councilmember Strebe.
Here.
Councilmember Dalby.
Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 16 on May 16th as presented. Approve appointment of Jeff Lindstedt to position of Engineering Assistant 2 effective June 12th, 2017. Grant application to the Bureau of Justice Assistance to participate in the 2017 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Program and authorize the mayor to sign any related documents as may be required. Contract with the Ottumwa Economic Development Corporation for the period of July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2018 in the amount of $20,000 and authorize the mayor to sign. Accepting the work as final and complete and approving the final pay request for the 2017 RFP number 1 utility access adjustments. Resolution number 130, 2017, authorizing payment for renewal of the city workers' compensation insurance in Chapter 411 administrative agreement for July 1, 2017 until June 30, 2018, the amount of $71,810 and payment to Iowa Municipal Workers' Compensation Association. Resolution number 134, 2017, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the Johnson Avenue reconstruction project. Resolution number 135, 2017, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the Sanitary Utility Access Program 2017. Cigarette tobacco applications for Ottumwa Grocery, 129 East 2nd Street, Smokin' Hot, 2604 North Court, Casey's, number 2208, 1603 West 2nd Street, Casey's number 7, 1001 East Main Street, Casey's number 1678, 346 Richmond Avenue, Casey's number 1886, 504 West Mary Street, Iowa Liquor and Tobacco, 1021 East Main Street, Dollar General number 7179, 721 North Quincy Avenue, Dollar General number 2898, 921 East Main Street, Smoke and Joe's Tobacco and Liquor Outlet number 5, 1115 Albia Road.
Is there a motion?
Move the consent agenda as presented, Your Honor, with the exception of removing item B4.
Is there a second to that? Second. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Bob. Okay, go ahead and take the roll.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Item C in our agenda, we need an approval for tonight's agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mark.
Councilmember Myers,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
At this time, we'll move into reports from city officers, boards, commissions, and committee. And I'd like to call on City Administrator Andy Morris, who is technically filling in tonight and is sitting in Joni Keith's spot. So Andy, if you would tell us about the
First of all, I have not touched this water bottle up here, Mr. Mayor. I believe that belongs to Ms. Keith, and I'll leave that alone. Just one item to bring up, and this speaks to B4 that was brought up before, the OEDC contract. That will be brought back again at the meeting on the 20th. At that meeting as well, Sharon Stroh's put together some highlights of the contract in terms of some of her activities. I'll have that sheet as well at that meeting on the 20th. Mayor, the rest of the items under reports, I would defer to you to go through those at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number one is groundbreaking. The Alliant Energy Generating Station out Chillicothe is going to have a open house on June 16th, and like to encourage council and city staff to participate as best they can. Item number two, IWEA, that's the Iowa Water and Environmental Association, is holding a two-day conference here at the Bridgeview Center. Our Cam Reeves, our superintendent of the Water Pollution Control Facility, got that conference here. We have a couple hundred people from all over the state of Iowa here talking about water and environmental issues. Item number three, had a great meeting at the chamber office this past week with Chamber Director Connie Hammersley, who's in the audience, Danny Simonson, who is a workforce development worker and also a veteran. We really made some progress, felt really good about leaving the meeting, that we're moving ahead, and we are registering the city as a home-based Iowa site on the computer. So any veteran anywhere in the world can access this and find out about jobs here in our community. So really pleased about that, and we'll give you more reports as we get moving along with some incentives on that. Next week, there should be a correction on number 4. Special meeting should be June 13th. We will have a presentation from Brian Bakey, who is an engineer with HDR. He will be giving council an update on the water pollution control facility and the facility plan that they've just completed. And that's a good update we've all been waiting for and looking forward to hearing. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Jody Gates to come to the podium and make some presentations on the Make Ottumwa Shine certificates.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I would invite the mayor to come down as well. We finished our Make Ottumwa Shine campaign the end of April, and we had about 100 volunteers. Some of them are with us this evening to receive certificates and badges, and we would like to honor them for the work that they've done. Many purple bags and pounds of trash were collected off of our roadsides. And we have our citizens here to thank for that work. It's not glorious work, but every year they volunteer to help make Ottumwa shine. So if we could have Holly Berg and also Chayton True and Dwight Dolman come up, please. Thank you very much. And our next group, U.S. Bank. If we could have our U.S. Bank employees come up, please. And I think our first person is Selena Dyer. And she organized this event for her employees and with her peers. And Angie Gunter, is she here? Okay, so we'll let you take hers. And Brandy Vanderpool. Dee Brooke, I know, is here. Thank you very much for your work. And Jamie? Sherilyn Headley? And then we'll let you take the last Wendy's certificate. Thank you. The U.S. Bank employees selected several sites and cleaned up many areas, and we appreciate all the work that you did. Thank you so much. And we have, we do indeed. I think last but not least, we have quite a group of Girl Scouts here with us this evening, so if we could have our Girl Scouts come up. There you go. We'll bring some of you on over here. There you go. Good job. All right, now I've got to get here so I can read. So our first Girl Scout is Bella Shaman. And Caitlin Perry. And we have Kaylee Kirkpatrick. Lily Hood. Megan Prado. Thank you. It was bound to happen. Tylen Johnson. And do we have Jaslyn Cassidy? Thank you, ladies, for all the work that you put in making Ottumwa shine. And I hope that there wasn't anybody that I missed in the audience. No? Okay, good. I did want to let you know that we had John Deere employees also participated. They cleaned all around the John Deere plant and preferred to have their certificate mailed to them. Nancy Emanuel, the Noon Lions cleaned up downtown. We had Dr. Pepper employees that participated this year. And of course, the Boy Scouts, they weren't able to be here, but we'll make sure that they get their certificates. We had Horace Mann fifth graders, so Mrs. Wildbrenner's fifth graders, they always help every year, and she usually brings at least one more class along with her. Indian Hills Community College, McEwen and Reed, and I think that we had a small group this year, but they were a mighty group and they did a great job. And I think we should give them all a round of applause.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you for organizing that. And every little bit does make a difference. And I saw some of those purple bags, so you collect a lot of stuff. Okay, let's move on to item E. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to talk about an item on the agenda? All right, let's move to item F then. Departmental recommendations. Amanda?
Bid report and contract award to Environmental Edge for asbestos removal and demolition of 1021 South Madison and 1731 Maple Street. Recommendation, accept the bid and award the contract to Environmental Edge for the sum of $14,200.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Jody. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We did accept bids for these two demolitions and asbestos removals until 2 o'clock on May 30th, received 2 bids, and the best one was from Environmental Edge. These are the first 2 of approximately 10 properties that we will be demolishing in the next, I want to say 4 months or so, depending upon how quickly things can happen. Mostly the reason that we're moving for demolition is that a lot of these houses, we've attempted to sell them and we cannot, or they are in such bad condition that we don't feel that there's any point in attempting to sell them. So we're choosing demolition as a first option.
Okay. Any questions for Jody? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the sale of city-owned property described as Lot 42 in Eastview Subdivision Number 1. I received no objections on this item.
Go ahead, Jody.
Sorry. This is the lot that Bob Schmidt has offered $125 for. It's next to a duplex that he built a number of years ago. And he's wanting it to be able to allow the duplex extra space. And we're recommending selling him this property.
This is a public hearing. If there's anyone that wants to address this item. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 123, 2017, accepting the offer and approving the sale of city-owned property described as Lot 42 in Eastview Subdivision Number 1 to Robert Schmidt for the sum of $125. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 123, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Jody? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Osage Drive reconstruction project. I received no objections on this item.
Good evening, Larry, our Public Works Director. You have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor, Council. Reconstruct approximately 1,000 linear feet of Osage Drive between Oak Meadow Drive and Pawnee Drive. The reconstruction includes removal of 12 inches of subgrade treatment with fly ash and 6 inches of modified subbase and 8 inches of new PCC pavement. Ancillary work includes survey, longitudinal subdrains, end drains, driveways, erosion control, and seeding. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on June 28, 2017 at 2 p.m. and a bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at the City Council meeting July 11th, 2017 or a time later date set determined by staff. The funding was CIP. We've got approximately 40 working days in this contract.
This item is a public hearing also. If there's anyone that wants to address this item. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 131, 2017, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Osage Drive reconstruction project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 131, 2017.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any questions for Larry? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Fox Sock Road reconstruction project. I've received no objections on this item.
Go ahead, Larry.
Very similar project. This one will reconstruct approximately 800 linear feet of Fox Sock Road, starting about 150 east of Oak Meadow Drive to Pawnee Drive, including the Pawnee Drive intersection. The reconstruction includes removal of the 12 inches of subgrade treatment with fly ash, 6 inches of modified subbase, 9 inches of pavement. And again, the ancillary work will include the survey, longitudinal subdrains, driveways, erosion control, and seeding. Bids will be received and opened by the city on June 28, 2017 at 2 p.m. And a bid report and a bid award recommendation will be presented at the city council meeting on July 11th, 2017 or at a later date as determined by staff. Again, this is funded through the CIP 2017 program. One note that I would make is these will be dependent on if it's the same contractor or different contractors. There's a staging, and we'll work with the contractor to see which one wants to get in first because we can't close both at the same time.
Yeah. This is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this item. Seeing none, let's entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Skip.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 132, 2017, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Fox Sock Road reconstruction project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 132, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Larry about this?
Your Honor, I got a quick question.
Sure.
Some point of information here, maybe for the public. Out of all the streets we have in Atoma, there's a lot of them that need reconstruction, overlays, et cetera. They're in poor shape. Could you kind of give us and maybe the public a little bit of idea why these two were chosen and why they need to be replaced?
We're looking at, well, for one, for instance, the Osage one is beyond any type of patch or overlay. We've kind of wrote out the condition of it. There are a few businesses that are developing along that corridor, but we really have no other options. Any money that we put into them is really almost wasted money. So we went in with full reconstruction on these two.
Thank you.
Okay, good question. Any other comments? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Canteen Alley Phase 2 2017 program. I received no objections on this item.
Go ahead, Larry.
I'm going to kind of introduce this project, and then we've got some representatives from the architectural firm that'll come up and give a PowerPoint presentation. But as just a narrative, this is part of a downtown revitalization that Legacy has teamed with Main Street to develop a phased plan to improve the downtown infrastructure. Working with IEDA, Legacy has been able to secure a grant for the reconstruction of Canteen Alley. The alley is located between Main Street and 2nd Street and runs from Market to Court. The grant is based on incorporating some best management practices, which on this project include permeable pavers and decorative features. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Atoma on June 28th, 2017 at 2 p.m. Bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented to the City Council on July 11th, 2017, or at a later date is determined by staff. We've got an updated engineering estimate, but when you look at the funding, IEDA grant is $543,000. Under CIP, we've got $80,000, and loss, we've got $20,000. One of the things that we wanted to do is while the street is out doing the best management practices and putting in the paver and the permeable pavers was to replace the sanitary sewer and the storm. That's where we come in with our money to replace that. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Brent for his presentation, and he did bring some good graphics with him.
Good evening, Brett.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to present this exciting project. Okay. So Larry gave a good job of describing the context. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. If you can see on the screen up there in purple, we're between Market and Court. And I wanted to touch on phase 1 since this project is called phase 2. Most of you may be familiar coming directly off of Main Street. We'll call it the pass-through space. That was a catalyst project. Next slide. That we worked on in 2015 and 2016. So these are some of the initial graphics that helped kind of launch the partnership between IEDA, Legacy Foundation, and the city. Next slide. And then if any of you have been over there recently, the project is just finishing up. We've got a LED sign that lights up at night on the front side. It introduces folks to Canteen Alley. On the back side of the letters that you see here, it says Main Street. So that'll be a threshold into your Main Street, and there are seating blocks and plantings along the brick alleyway. Next. So phase 2 is an entire block long. What we're doing here, as Larry mentioned, he described most of the unglamorous portions of the project, everything underground. What we're doing above ground is replacing all of the pavement to get rid of your potholes and putting concrete through there. You can see the brown color on the plan graphic. Those are permeable pavers. And we've got an updated plan in here that I'll show you in a second. But the permeable pavers are going to take that stormwater down into the ground into a rock chamber. So that's a sustainable feature. We've got site amenities that I'll show you here in a second, as well as some public art components that'll be part of the project. So this is the updated plan that's going out for bid. You can see the circular patterns, the brown arcs there. Those are the permeable pavers. So a fun pattern that really builds off of the locations of the public art. Next. And just a couple slides here of the existing conditions, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. Next. And that's a view east down the alleyway. So permeable paving, we have some of this in the Jefferson Street parking lot project that's functioning very well. This was a big component of the IEDA grant. So we've got over half of the alleyway or close to in the permeable paving. So that, again, that water is going to hit the pavement and go down into the soil, recharge. It's also a great benefit in this particular area because we have a lot of downspouts on the back of the building causing challenges. We're going to upgrade a number of those downspouts where the budget allows, but we hope that that water will come out of downspouts and go right into those permeable pavers and down into the ground and not sit on the pavement. Next. One of the amenity zones that we have, if we can see here, just on the left of the screen is the canteen, restaurant. Here you go. So this zone right in here, if you can see the laser, what we're doing in this area is we're relocating the handicap parking space that pulls in off of the alley. That space will move into the garage. We have talked through that with the owners. We've met with all the stakeholders in the corridor and creating a nice seating zone for the canteen restaurant as well as for the public. So we'll have 2 new picnic tables, some limestone blocks. The transformers are being upgraded. Those will shift a little bit. We'll get some planting area in there. And then we're going to have catenary lights, the string lights like we have in the phase 1 over top. Next. So the image will look something like that next to the canteen. So a very much improved atmosphere. Our goal here is that we're making a nice area for pedestrians to walk through, really begin to connect the dots in downtown. Next. And the public art component, this was a graphic that we presented to IEDA probably about a year ago that got them really excited about the project. We said, well, what if, in addition to permeable paving and doing the standard features here, what if we do something that's really unique and special to Ottumwa? What if we, with all of these downspouts, capture the storm water and take it through some form of public art to clean the water, to slow the water down, and make it a feature and a draw for people to come to the alley? Next. And so you can see this was just an example of what could be. The water comes down the downspouts and through some series of planters and overspills into the alleyway, into the permeable paving. Next. So as part of the project, we put Canteen Alley out for a national call for artists. And we didn't know what to expect. We thought we'd get a handful of local artists, maybe a few from the Midwest. Much to our surprise, we received 17 submittals from across the country. And we actually received, there are people that specialize in downspout art, we found out. And we received the best of the best. And we're very excited about that. We formed a jury. We whittled it down to 5 and eventually selected 2 artists for installation. And this is one of them. The blue circle on the plan graphic represents the location. So just southwest of the canteen restaurant is the Rain Hopper by Robert Tully out of Colorado. So this is the blue arc at the top is a blue stainless steel vessel that will capture the water and slowly release it like a hole in the bucket into a stainless steel series of cups that will slowly kind of release. It's kind of like the Plinko board that you see on that game show. You know, kind of the water comes through there and then down into a planter and then into the ground. And the idea here is really, while most people aren't traveling the alley during a rainstorm, this particular art piece will take advantage of that water and release it over a couple of hours when people might be walking through the alley. Next. And this next piece we call the faucet. This is from Greg Mueller in Minneapolis. And this is on the back, blue dot there, of Legacy Foundation building that Principal Financial Group leases. So on the back there, replacing a downspout and a scupper location is an oversized faucet with a couple of handles. The water will come out that faucet and release into what looks like a drain and a rain garden planting area in the ground there, and have a couple of seating blocks, limestone blocks next to it. So both fairly whimsical, fun. We think they're a good draw. We think they're a great opportunity for photos for people walking through the alley, and a really nice identity piece. Next. And then schedule. I think Larry did a good job of going through this, but essentially what we're looking to do is, if we get a successful bid, is to get started in August and have the project closed out in early November. There'll be a lot of paperwork on the back side of the project for the grant. everything should be wrapped up this fall and this winter, and we should have a nice project to celebrate soon. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anything you want to direct to Brett? I think it's an example of a great public-private partnership, and IDEA and all the work that's been done planning-wise, and I appreciate Public Works thinking long-term that we're going to take care of the infrastructure underneath the alley that has been a problem for quite some time. So great effort.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks too. We often look for things that are unique to Ottumwa, and to have those be accentuated. Canteen certainly has been a part of Ottumwa for a long time, and to add new unique features to the area, I think is a great thing for the community. Thank you.
This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience that wants to comment on this, this is your time to call it to the council's attention. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 133, 2017, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Canteen Alley Phase 2 2017 program. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 133, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second. Thank you, Bob.
Mayor,
Any questions or comments? Yes, go ahead.
okay. Well, Larry, I would just, again, echo the mayor's comments that this public-private partnership, and not only an area that will be developed as attractive and a draw to the area, but I remember not too many years ago, or in heavy rain occasions, when the older substructure there hasn't been able to handle the water and so forth. So here we are also getting that upgrade and that update. So thank you for your help with it.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, just one
Go ahead.
question. Larry, I don't know whether you and I have had this conversation before, but when talking about, in essence, what you would think that subbase, the water filtrates, is there at any time then you have to use like a extrication equipment or anything such as that? I mean, over time, I realize that, that nature takes care of itself, but is there a given period of time when, from a construction standpoint or maintenance standpoint, you have to remove the items that have quite frankly washed down into that basin?
One of the things that would have to probably be done in year 7 or 8, it kind of depends on how much material is tracked in there. Usually dirt and stuff has a negative impact on the permeable pavers. You have to suck the top layer of fine material that goes between the bricks and then put new in, for it still will drain water through.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments?
Your Honor, I'd just like to make a quick comment on this. Looking at the funding portion of this, you have the IEDA grant, $543,000, but basically a local match through CIP and loss of 100. That's just amazing. And, a big thanks goes out to those folks who work really hard to try to establish these grants and get them for the city, because if this was not, funded by mostly grant money, we wouldn't be able to do this type of stuff. So thanks to all those involved. We appreciate what you do every day as well. Makes these projects come true. Thanks again.
This is one of the deals, to echo what the mayor had said. The Legacy Group has developed a very good working relationship with IDEA, and that's where this money is coming from. It's really a springboard. When they seen the Jefferson Street parking lot, they liked the concept, along with some of the stuff that Jody's been doing with the facade program. All this is tied together in the big picture, so it's kind of coming together in that fashion.
I might make the comment, and this is not part of this motion, but last Friday we did do a walkthrough of the Jefferson Street parking lot that has the permeable pavers. And Fred Zessinger did a great job of demonstrating the water retention. He had a tank of water that was opened up and drained into the area. And Congressman Lobzak was there and watched it and asked a lot of good questions. It was a good experience, I think, for our community as well as for the Congressman, and I hope that we'll see more of these kind of projects now that they're paying attention. So, okay, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, let's take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Brett.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the beach renovations Phase 2 Project 2017. I received no objections on this item.
Good evening, Gene. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project consists of separate contracts to address Phase 2 for the required renovations at the Beach Ottumwa, located at 101 Church Street. Contract A will be for concrete repairs to the wave pool. Contract B is for water filter equipment replacement. Contract C will address heating, ventilation, and air conditioning improvements. And Contract D is for recoating the indoor pools. This public hearing will be for contracts A, B, C, and D, which will be bid concurrently. Construction on project is slated to begin the first part of September 2017 and conclude by Memorial Day 2018. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on July 12, 2017. The bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at the City Council meeting on July 18, 2017. Construction on this project is expected to commence September 11, 2017 and shall be completed by May 18, 2018. The engineer's opinion of costs, Contract A, concrete repairs, $305,000. Contract B, pool filter equipment and replacement, $190,000. Contract C, boiler and HVAC equipment repairs, $120,000. And Contract D, recoating indoor pools, $50,000. And City Engineer Dwight Dolman has some slides he'd like to show tonight.
Thank you, Gene. I just want to give you and the council a visual summary of what this next scope of work is going to entail. We are in the process of finishing up Phase 1 as we speak, and Phase 1 addressed the kiddie pool, which you see over here, the concrete repairs to the kiddie pool and the catch pool over here. Phase 2 is going to be the repairs to the wave pool here. And we are also going to be replacing the decking up here against the indoor pool facility. Just to give you an idea of what these repairs are going to entail. Next slide, please. What I do is I go through the pools with a hammer and a set of chains, and I sound out all the concrete. And whenever you encounter an area where the concrete is bad, the sound is distinctly different. I've marked those areas out with the paint. This area here, the top part of the wall is the area that's bad. And then down here, we have an area that has cracked and deteriorated. So that's how we determine the location of the repairs. Now, if I can have the next slide. Over there by the two tunnels, this entire area has turned out to be bad. And you can kind of see, I don't have any markings on the floor because in this area, the entire floor is going to get replaced. It's all bad. But to give you a better idea, next slide, please. This is on the kiddie pool side, and this is what it looks like after we take out all the bad concrete and before they apply the shotcrete. So if we could go to the next slide, we'll go over to the catch pool. Here's a small repair that has been started. They've chiseled out all the bad concrete. Next slide. This is that entire wall where they've finished taking out all the bad concrete and they're prepping the area for the shotcrete. Next slide. If we go over to the other wall, this shows you what the wall looks like after the repairs are made with the shotcrete and before it gets covered with the waterproof coating. You'll see on the where the guy is standing, the floor deck repair. If I can have the next slide. This is what that repair area looks like before we poured the concrete. That area was all completely bad. So that's a brief summary of Contract A. If I can have the next slide. Contract B is replacing the filter equipment. This is in the filter room on the south end of the wave pool. These two tanks, these two larger tanks, are filled with sand and are the sand filters. And there's a third one that's smaller back here behind this white tank. And all three of these tanks have exceeded their life. There are even areas on these tanks where you can poke your hole through them because the rust has been so bad. If it wasn't for the glass lining of the tanks, they'd be leaking water right now. But they've exceeded their life, and we're going to hope that we can make it through the season without any significant leakage. Next slide. Contract C is replacing the boiler and some HVAC equipment. These are the two boilers. This is the filter room where the pool filters are on the other side of that wall. These two boilers have also exceeded their service life. And if you've looked at the repair costs that we've had to endure for the past 3 years to get these things running in the spring, you'll understand why. It's been very expensive to get these things back up and running to get us to this season. So I think Gene's going to be pretty happy next spring with the new boilers that are going to be in place and getting them up and going. Next slide, please. These are the mechanical equipment that's up on the mezzanine. Not many people realize that this space is up there or even know where it's at. You have to get through the men's locker room. You have to bring a ladder in to get up to this area, which also explains the difficulty in trying to maintain this equipment. But this unit here is just a simple heat exchanger that uses the boiler to heat the lobby area. And this one here is a heat exchanger as well, but it also has a direct air exchange coil that allows cooling. That is for the office areas. Both these units are as old as the facility itself, which has exceeded its service life. Next slide. And then finally, contract D is recoating the pools. You can kind of see how faded the existing coating has got. Manufacturers indicated that you can anticipate recoating these pools every 4 to 6 years. Gene informs me the last time that these pools were recoated was in 2010. So that's 7, 8 years that we've got out of this. So that is the quick summary of the 4 contracts. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mayor, I have a question.
Well, this is a public hearing, so let's finish the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address this item? Then I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 138, 2017, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the beach renovations Phase 2 Project 2017. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 138, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Myers?
Okay, thank you. Dwight, it seems, well, first of all, really, the project really looks good, and I'm glad that the council, we were able to work towards CIPs to allow this type of redevelopment to be done. But when I first was reading this, I was thinking, wow, we just spent a lot of money prior to this maintenance move on boilers and HVAC, but you pretty well explained it then, that what we did before was main units as far as boiler and HVAC? Do you know?
I assume, yes. I'm not quite sure I understand your question. All the money that we've spent on a boiler, okay, I'm sorry. The money that we spent on a boiler was for the indoor pool boiler.
Right.
So we have a brand new boiler on the inside.
Yes.
These boilers are for the outdoor pools.
Right. But then we spent a lot of money on the HVAC also a few years ago, but that would have been again for the main part of the building, not for the area that you've just identified.
Correct. That was the air conditioning dehumidification system for the indoor pool facility, correct?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, just
Yes.
one point of clarification on this. Dwight and I know Gene and I've talked about this, but I want to make sure I'm clear on this one. This is year 2 of the 4-year STIP plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Those improvements, I believe, that will be effectuated, you'll see that then in the fall of this year.
Correct.
Was you at the end slide? That's all right.
Correct.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I think this is, I'll wait until the vote is taken and I'll make a comment. Is there any other question? Comment? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
I just was going to add the comment that the beach is 25 years old and we've exceeded its life in some areas. And I compliment the council on getting this repaired and corrected and bringing it back to the condition that it was intended to be and make it more usable for our children and our families. So thank you. Item H.
Resolution number 128, 2017, authorizing the mayor to execute a temporary easement agreement for River Hills Community Health Center to maintain a handicap ramp in city-owned right-of-way. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 128, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, Larry, go ahead.
River Hills has already constructed this ramp. This easement is necessary for them to keep the ramp in place. It is written so that all maintenance and rebuilding costs will be at their sole expense. The lease terminates if the ramp is not maintained or if the right-of-way layout changes so that the ramp obstructs public use of the right-of-way.
Any questions for Larry about this?
Larry, where is this ramp?
It would be right on the corner of Market and River, right on the south side of the building. When they finished, there's an entrance door there that had approximately a 5-inch step. They wanted to make it handicap accessible after the fact, so they added this ramp and used up part of the sidewalk area.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
I will abstain as I sit on the River Hills Board of Directors, and I feel this would be a conflict.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 129, 2017, approving the reallocation of $20,000 2017 CIP proceeds for the downtown facade roof and sign program to the Legacy Roof Grant Program. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 129, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Bob, you're going to take this for us?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor and Council. Jody Gates has requested that we reallocate $20,000 from the sign program to the Legacy Roof Grant Program. The Roof Grant Program has utilized its funding and requires an additional $20,000 for future funding requests. This will also be supplemented with additional funds from Legacy down the road here.
Any questions for Bob? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 136, 2017, awarding the contract for the Asphalt Street Repair Program 2017. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 136, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Okay, Larry, go ahead.
This project is for our annual asphalt street repair program, which started in 2003 and is used to set unit price cost. The work will consist of overlays on various streets in the city. Staff has reviewed sewer condition and the ADA requirements for each of these streets listed below. Bids were received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on May 31st, 2017 at 2 p.m. One bid was received. The low bidder is Norris Asphalt Paving Company of Ottumwa, Iowa, in the amount of $1,058,141.20. This includes the base bid total of $981,302.50 and an alternate bid item of $76,838.70. We have the streets that are been already selected by council for this program. The engineer's estimate for those streets is $719,000. And then we show past years what we spent in that program. The funding source is coming from road use.
Any questions for Larry? Okay, hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Resolution number 137, 2017, accepting the bid and awarding the contract for the CDBG Downtown Revitalization Phase 2 to Kirshner Contracting Incorporated. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 137, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Go ahead, Jody, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bids for this project were accepted until May 30th, and we received 2 of them. And Christner Contracting submitted the best bid. Both bids were over the engineer's estimate. Christner's bid was $1,441,663. The engineer's estimate was $1,011,153. And we've made it very clear that there are no additional funds for this project. Part of the money comes from a number of different sources. CDBG for $500,000, Legacy for $250,000, the city $125,000, OEDC and the Wapello County Board of Supervisors have put in some money, and then the remaining monies come from all of the property owners who are participating in this program. The intention here is that the contractor will look at areas of the work to see what could feasibly be reduced or cut. Building owners are meeting with the architect right now this week to discuss items that perhaps they might be able to let go of, or whether they have any more funds that they are willing to put into the project based upon the particular bid on their building, because every building had its own bid sheet. So we have 24 facades on 16 buildings. We expect this project will begin in July, and we will bring you a contract bond and certificate of insurance for the June 20th meeting, as long as everyone agrees to all of the terms and they get the budget down to a manageable level. Included in the bid was a 12% contingency, which is a pretty high contingency. That was based upon the architect's experiences with these types of projects. Christner Contracting has indicated that he's been able to live with a 5% contingency. So if we look at that, a large portion of this overage could come out of contingency. Best case scenario, it could happen. So I wanted to give you just some background on all of this. We're committed to making this project work and work within the monies that we have allocated for it. We do not intend to come back to any of the city, CDBG, or Legacy Foundation and ask for more funds.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation, Jody. Are there any questions, comments?
Your Honor, I've got a quick question.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was kind of lost on this one, Jody. You have to excuse me for that, but I do have a couple quick questions. The engineer's estimate, which is, close to being, what it, probably should cost, $1 million. We're at $1,400,000. We're accepting the bid at $1,440,000.
We are, and intending to value engineer it down to
Closer to the 1 million.
Closer to the 1 million, as well as ask any of the building owners whether they will be able to participate any more with any more funds. And then the third scenario is to begin to cut scopes of project work.
So even though we accept the bid at $1,440,000,
We'll be doing a change order to reduce that amount to what we have available, our funds that we have available after we've done value engineering.
I guess my question would be why are we approving an amount greater than what we know we're going to pay and yet come back and do a change order to adjust that down? Why don't we just approve, something, nearer to the engineer's estimate? I'm just puzzled by that.
It's my understanding that we need to actually award this contract in order to begin to value engineer the project with Christner Contracting.
Okay, but we will work through that and get it down to a much more
Yes, we
manageable
will.
level. I just don't want to see us commit to an over budget project and then have to
No.
commit to that.
I totally understand, and every party that that I've talked with the architect and Main Street Organization and Area 15, and Christner Contracting, they all understand the funds that are available, and there aren't any more funds.
Outstanding. Thank you very much.
And this is the 1 and 200 block.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Ordinance number 3115, 2017, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances by changing the zoning classification on property located at 1321 Asbury Avenue from R1 Single Family Low Density to R5 Multifamily Residential High Density. Recommendation, pass the third consideration, pass and adopt ordinance number 3115, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Good evening, Kevin. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're here for the third reading of of a project we've considered twice already, and I'll remind you that and members that it was for 63 total units, 12 of which would be market rate on Asbury there. And I would entertain any questions that anyone might have about this project or this rezoning.
Any questions for Kevin? Mark, go ahead.
Hi. So have you had a public meeting yet?
No, I haven't been to the area to have a public meeting with any of the individuals down there. I understand the developer did go down and I think or knew some folks from the area and had talked to them. Most of our interactions are in these situations are generally in our public meetings and our notifications.
Okay, so how's this project differ from the St. Joseph project where we had 2 public meetings at a minimum regarding moving that forward?
Well, I wasn't here for the St. Joseph project, but
understood.
Yeah, but I mean, so far we've had 3 public meetings. We had one in our planning meeting, and then we had the recommendation from our planning department, and then we've had 2 readings here in council. We haven't been on site to have any public meetings. I think it just being someone who's raw to the concept of what may have happened with St. Joseph, I would say that is a historic building that's been in the community. That's one of our oldest buildings in the community. So there's a lot of heartfelt stuff going on there with structures like that usually that has a special consideration. Being that it was a community service building, and there's, I think, probably a strong desire in the community to keep that structure with some constituencies. And so I could see that there would be special meetings surrounding that kind of aspect. And it's also a historic district, I think. And so you'd have historic committee meetings that would consider it, and probably, you would have some meetings outside of the ordinary to kind of take in historic committees and other feelings of the community on it. Whereas this is a greenfield project, and it's a rezoning for a greenfield project for a development where typically you have your standard public meetings, and that's about it.
Sure. Okay. And all of that stuff is understood. But at the end of the day, we had 2 public meetings for something that would positively or negatively affect property values in that area of the community. And we're running the same situation here, be it positively or negatively. We'll be putting a project into place that will have an impact on the property values, and we haven't followed through on that same path with that.
Well, I mean, in the meetings, in our planning meeting, there was some comment to property. What do you think will happen with property values? Because when one says positively or negatively, one could be saying, person A would say, if my property taxes go up, that's a negative. I see that as a negative effect. Where person B could say, if my property value goes down, I see it as a negative effect. But factually, as I said before, in council and on the planning floor, typically in these situations, taxes will, to some degree, at least mildly, go up because, of course, the value of the property has vastly increased. Use is not going to be as impactive as pure investment. in most situations when it comes. It might be different if it was a hog confinement that we're building, obviously something that's have a negative environmental perceived effect. But when it comes to housing versus housing, typically you're going to see an increase in property value. Now, some people could see that as a negative. This is true, and not see it as my investment has gained more value. Rather, I'm going to have to pay more taxes per se. Even though in cases like this, most of the time it's a negligible increase where it does occur.
Okay, so to move on to another issue, didn't we as a city spend about $75,000 not too long ago to smooth out the zoning of the city to not have so many spot zoned areas?
Well, we did a rezoning, and in typical rezoning processes, yes, in many cases you try to look at instances of spot zoning throughout your city and do something about that, meaning to zone more properly to use. Again, typically when you redo that zoning map, which is a part of that rezoning process, you would see the cities try to, with the new map, quote, try to reflect what is current use of lots.
Sure.
Now that can be indicative of some zoning spots, right? Because some of these uses are a little more antiquated. In other words, they've got more vesture in time in a certain location. People say, I can't believe that this person can have this dump truck in this R1 lot. But the thing was that's a grandfathered case. It's been there, in some cases, just an example. However, in our case, I feel like that most likely because of what I'm seeing with the zoning map versus the former zoning map that you had, that the city was not overzealous in kind of addressing what are some of the more academic or best management practice kind of issues that existed with prior zonings. In other words, I think it was kind of just like, we're going to take this and now put it on this new map. Now we go through our announcement processes and we're done. We're looking at an effect, a real effect of that in a tangible fashion in our next issue, our next ordinance here in our fireworks ordinance, because of course we have some C1, I think, and C2 questions there. Because we have some C1s that are in what should be C2 established nodes. You have islands of C2 amongst a C1 area, which is inappropriate. So I don't think that we were very much engaged in that part of the zoning process when we did our rezoning, rather with language and code and not so much map.
So would it be fair to say one of two things is happening here? Either we're going against what we spent money on, or we didn't do our due diligence the first time. So is that fair to say?
I think that would be being publicly pessimistic, if I could say that with a grin. But no, it's not an anomaly. It's not an odd instance that a city that hadn't done a new zoning code, and at the time, the city we're about to do our new comp plan. It's much more common that communities would do a new comp plan and then come out of that, excuse me, into a new zoning code activity. We're doing it the other way. But it is not uncommon to have changes, and council has seen myself bring some changes for recommendation to the code as it is. Sorry. I don't think that we wasted money as a community. We have a zoning code that is new, that has some barbs on it, but that's what happens when we sharpen a knife. We get a few barbs. That's why we drop the blade. And so I think that we're really kind of repairing what are some weak points in that code. And have talked about when we do our comp plan, looking at the map in that fashion too. But the city did not pay an inordinate amount for that zoning improvement either. I don't think it was as much as one can see in a city this size.
Sorry. I just want to say a couple of things. When we updated the zoning code, we took great care not to change zoning. If you'll recall the discussion that we were having at that time, there were council members who did not want to see us just go in and begin to change zoning areas. And so we didn't do that. We took great pains not to. Maybe in hindsight, we should have looked at it a little closer. But adjusting some of our zoning areas, we were looking especially at a lot of areas where they were zoned commercial and industrial, but yet they were being used as residentially. We were looking at changing zoning in that regard. But we have not done that yet. We haven't touched it. We updated the zoning code and the map as our first step. And then as we've, and it's been pretty slow, but as the city's acquired some properties, commercial properties, for instance, that were being used residentially, we brought those to you to change the zoning, but we haven't gone into like large areas and changed zoning. I just wanted to say that because I don't want you to think that we wasted our money on updating the zoning code. I don't believe that we did. I think we needed to do that. Certainly the code and the map as a first step, but we're not finished.
Jody, perhaps it would be appropriate at this point. Are there other council questions, individual council? Go ahead, Matt.
Real quickly, and either Kevin or Jody, one issue I have or fear I have with this is it says it's slated, this project, I know we're just talking about the zoning this evening, but the project itself overall depends on this rezone. It says approximately 12 market rate housing units that have a total of 63 geared towards seniors and workforce availability. My concern is we have the plan of providing housing for what we think might come in here. What if that doesn't happen? I'm sure the developer, if we don't get market rate or get, tenants in there that are of that level of income, has to fill that building with something. Is this an issue where we're incentivizing voucher housing? Worst case scenario.
I would say at 75,000, to the prior point, just to clear that up, 75,000. I've paid that much to do a new zoning code in the city of 10,000, so that was not actually a bad deal. But to the point of your question, no, it's not that we're building this for something we don't have. It's that we're building for something we do have. We have housing issues currently. We do have a vastly quickly growing population of seniors, and we are going to have more of that going forward in the future with the aging baby boomer population. Yes, we do have a shortage of workforce housing that is in decent and not dilapidated condition. I think we all know that. According to our blight statistics and the condition of most of our housing, single family more than multi, because we have very little multifamily in this city, and that's one of our problems as well. This project is for problems we have now currently that are going to be exacerbated if we do not react in the future, and that are going to become even more an economic development impediment to us as a community, because one of the first things you're going to look at when these businesses come to town, yes, number one, there, as I think we said in another meeting, how many permits have you pulled in the last few years? Well, none is a bad indication. It's not a growing community. But more importantly, what's the quality of life that my potential employees are going to have? And at a time where we're making a push to do the kind of economic development that we're going to see people who are going to qualify to stay in this in the future, and even now who don't have available housing or workforce. I would say that we've come to a moment of great peril in our ability to do the things that we say we're trying to do, for that fundamental lack of housing, quality or otherwise.
Kevin, I just get held up on one thing. When we talk about workforce housing and market rate housing, my first question shortly would be, what is that defined as? And number two, if that's defined as, somewhere in the middle of some of the things that we have here in Ottumwa, indicative of some of the economic outlays we have, and, we're a middle to lower income community, more or less. My hold up on this is, if I'm a middle income person or a market rate person, I'm not going to want to live in a building. I'm going to want to buy a home, repair it, build it, or build a new, even smaller home. And so the hurdle I have of getting over approving all of the housing developments that we're doing is it going to stop? Is this going to be an every month we're going to have a new development come up? Are we meeting the needs that we know we have in the community only, and not incentivizing other types of housing? And I just can't get over the fact that, I would think that the middle or market rate income folks would want to either buy a home that is dilapidated or slightly on the cusp of being out of service, repair it, live in it, or build their own. I don't have a problem meeting the needs of the community. If we need this kind of housing, I certainly would back it. But if we get this 1 a month development type thing situation with which, with the multifamily residential tax bill would, seem to incentivize, I'm a little, I don't want it to be where we just do this every month and we don't assess the needs. We just do it because it sounds good at the time, and then we are left with a building with a lot of the voucher housing. That's my fear.
There's a lot of answers to that question. I would say that would be the most wonderful malady to have as a city. I've got too much development. That's almost tough for me to say out loud. I'm a bit of a capitalist, so that's tough for me to, because in a way, these projects it's not just when we look at these projects, our housing, the dearth of quality housing, the amount of people the size of the families that stay in here too. A lot of these situations are going to be younger couples, are going to be singles, are going to be people rooming together who are in the workforce and young, as well as later on seniors, who are alone with their spouse or alone. But no, I mean, the immediate stimulus impact of a lot of construction activity going on. Very healthy communities, cities, communities are going to have about 30% of their 25-30% of their economy being development construction. And as far as are we giving something away when we incentivize? I think that's kind of that kind of leads into a TIF type, the way we're incentivizing here with the rebatement, a TIF type conversation. But being out there, and if we're in the game with growth and development in a healthy manner, especially in the Midwest, in this state, being out there, it means we're going to have that TIF jersey on, because that's the uniform. That's part of it. That is the incentive. Right. And when we're doing that, we're not losing anything, because of course, this is a green field. In some cases, we'll see brownfield or gray field, as in the Washington case, it was a gray field, an underutilized piece of property. In this field, it's a green, or in this case, it's a green field that is an capable piece of property. In the market, this piece was not capable of reaching any kind of maturation rate. It was just staying at a very early stage of development, none. So we're not losing anything incentivizing that, because after that 10-year period, it's coming back on that tax roll, and it'll be on that tax roll for 20 years. Meaning 10 you will recoup, 20 or another 10 you get for free, that income, and then it goes back into a cycle again where you are incentivizing the redevelopment of it, probably, which is very common. So I, as a former developer guy in the development industry and all that, I very rarely see anything bad when hammers are hitting nails.
I know we've been a community that has always had apartment buildings. We've always had a need for that type of housing, a little bit less expensive apartments. But do we have a ceiling of what we say, okay, Ottumwa has this much need for this much housing?
Yeah.
And are we going to go and just approve every single development and get too much of this, in excess of this housing, and then have to take whatever we have left to fill it? Or are we going to try to align what we're doing here with development with the needs of the community? That's my only question.
Yeah, that's a good one. And given the constituency who we're talking about servicing, especially in the workforce industry, especially if we're going to be the destination place, which is indicative of a lot of retail service and a lot of entertainment and this and that, looking at the dynamics or the demographics, I would say that we could probably stand about 3,000 units just like these.
Thank you.
I think that question was also answered in the Iowa State study that was done about almost 3 years ago now, to answer your question. And that was done by our own Iowa State people. So I think it's a valid source of information.
And that's about a third of our overall, a little less than a third of our overall stock. And you got to think of in terms of growing community, right? Because if the community is growing, it's not the same people year after year in those occupancies. Many of those people are coming into there temporarily in order, as you indicated earlier, to build a house. They're living here for a year while they build, or they're moving into renting a single family home or whatever. So this is a dynamic, not a static set of demographics when we talk about who is staying in these kinds of occupancies.
Kevin and Jody, is there? Victor, go ahead.
Yeah, those are good questions by Councilman Rowe and Dalby. I'd like to follow up with questions based on each of them. The first one is Councilman Rowe brought up a good point about notification of citizens that live in adjacent properties and homeowners around there. Is there something in our existing code right now that requires that, and that we are notifying them? And if not, we probably should include something in that when it comes to not only property value, but quality of life. They should definitely have, communication or notification of that. So is there something in our existing code where there's notifications for those people?
Yes, we do. Our announcements for our meetings, of course, and our public hearings. And then we also have signage that you post your signage. And for adjustments, when you talk about I'm going to go to the zoning board of adjustments, you'll see a 200-foot radius where you actually send out letters. We also do that for our rezonings. I don't think that's lawfully required, but we do perform it.
And one thing that occurred to me with Councilman Delby's question is maybe some of the aging population that you were talking about can maybe no longer keep up their homes and their properties. And this could be a situation where maybe some of the people that were moving to town would occupy those homes. But my question then is, are these new installations going to have assisted living facilities? Or how do we know that, say, when an elderly couple decides that, or an individual can't keep up their home or property, that these places would be ones that would be more desirable for them to go rather than to some other assisted living or some nursing facility?
Yeah, I would classify these as first stage, these kinds of things where they're either their workforce / senior housing, because typically your developers are applying for both those credits just to try to maximally fill the gap of financing. But it's first stage senior living. It's rarely is it going to be assisted living. Although you will see people developers go strictly in for senior tax credits where they're going to have stages of living. That's not what this project is. Of course, this is just for seniors who are operable in the ages of probably 55 to 65 years old, 70. Other facilities would pick up that constituency in our community. And of course, you see in our community, we're moving towards a very healthy development in medical industrial complex. I do anticipate seeing a lot of that more assisted and stage type projects coming forward. We'd like to see that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did we do anything different in this process than we have done with other development issues? You're shaking your head no? Okay, so we followed that. I think it goes back to Victor's question of notification. We followed the same process with everybody.
I'm not aware of any special process.
Okay.
If I may, Mayor.
Yes.
Kevin, I thought you raised a really strong point on the fact that for a city like ours, anytime you can come up with a project like this that infuses up to 11 million or more, that certainly that's creating jobs, and that there is, as you've indicated, whether it's Des Moines or some of the other growing communities, there is always from a lot of the projects like this.
That's right. I mean, every dollar spent is going to turn into $1.85 by the time it comes back around. You want to see, in a community like ours, a regional leader like we really are already in so many ways, you want to see 1 out of every 5 cars be an F-350. At least in my case, I'm a Ford guy on a big truck level. You want to see an F-350 with equipment in the back that says, John's carpentry business or Jill the plumber. I mean, that's the thing. A healthy trade sector is so important to the success of a community like ours. And these kinds of projects, if we were, God bless us, if we were to be able to get 1 a month, my goodness, we would be and that health would transfer into your restaurant business, into your stay. Now your motel, hotel taxes come into it, your sales taxes. It's such a multitude of stimulus effects on a community like ours is a healthy development industry. For us, especially with the housing situation, the way we are, we're blowing right up to the point of bottlenecking. If we were to do any other kind of development that would create significant jobs base, just the other day, we're up at the mayor, myself, and Jody, we're up talking to the county about our expansions in the north to do that retail creation. And the county had brought into it in some of the private conversations I'd had with them, their warehousing property. We should be a hub for warehousing. What if we exploded that sector? What are we going to do with the people that have those $15 to $20 an hour jobs? A lot of those folks are going to stay in these multifamily facilities, at least for short periods of time, in their transition to becoming permanent citizens. So to measure the economic impact of us being aggressive in this manner, the way we are right now, being progressively aggressive, it's an analysis. I don't want to run a regression equation up here, but it'd be an analysis that would look a little more complicated than just basically simply we're going to give up 10 years worth of tax base to get this structure.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? We've had a good discussion.
What we're voting on tonight is just the zoning, correct?
It is. We're voting tonight to change the zoning to an R5 to allow for this level of housing density. And later on, of course, we will be voting to do a similar action to the creation of a contract and all the things that we did with the Washington project, because the developer will be going in this December is the deadline for application for those tax credits.
So just to be clear, this does not approve the construction of the apartment complex.
To be clear, this zoning paves the way for this project because the developer is coming in. He owns the property. He fully intends to do a project at some future time and date. This very soon, if he gets his credits, as soon as he gets his credits, he does tend to pursue a development there. So I would answer that confidently. Yes, if we rezone right now, we're looking at this project as something that is appropriate on this lot.
Mr. Mayor, just one question, clarification on this, given I want to make sure I understand that, picking up on Councilman Rose.
Yeah.
One of the items that it seems to me, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but one of the focal points of this is the property tax rebatement. Again, what was mentioned tonight is Councilman Stevens referenced, and that is tonight we're talking, quite frankly, a lot of finance issues when in reality it's a land use issue. But it's my understanding the property tax rebatement, I know something that you and I've talked about, that is something that has not been approved yet. Isn't that correct?
We haven't approved that portion yet. No, we would do it prior to the application for the tax credits.
So my point being then that it does follow is that we're talking about the zoning as a separate issue, and then the merits and demerits of whether or not we would give council would grant a property tax rebatement is a completely separate issue.
It is a separate issue. Although I think this rezoning indicates that council understands that at a point very soon, once some of the preliminary planning work is done, the developer will be coming forward and pressing council with the question of will our community support solving what is this an intricately elemental issue.
That's fine. I just want to be clear though, what we're talking about right here, right now is strictly the zoning issue.
Yes.
But Kevin, I want to say, I appreciate your integrity. We can kick this can around all we want to, but the fact of the matter is if we approve this zoning, then in all likelihood, the proposals as we've heard them, that would come for us as a project.
This will be a direct catalyst to the developer starting processes he's going to invest real money in real time and real engineering effort toward helping our community. Yes.
Okay, good discussion, lots of questions, but we're talking about just the zoning issue tonight. There's a motion and a second. Are you ready to vote? Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
No.
Councilmember Stevens?
No.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
No.
Motion failed.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 3123, 2017, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances repealing and replacing section 38149, storage, sale, and use of toxic and explosive substances. Recommendation A, pass the first consideration of ordinance number 3123, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Okay. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Your Honor. We had our meeting and our planning meeting yesterday, and our planning board forwarded the fireworks ordinance with two provisions that I've said in my report to council. The sale of fireworks will be conducted in C2, CS1, I1, and I2 districts alone, and that any person engaging in the sale of fireworks on a city lot that does not have direct ownership of that lot must also avail themselves of a city transient merchant license. Other than that, we have no regulatory structure entertained in this ordinance. The board did wish that it be indicated that they were not unfriendly to the fact that council had some other consideration to make on a level of these districts, and that council may see fit that or deem it to be so that other appropriate or necessary district inclusions would be made.
Questions for Kevin?
Yeah. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead. Councilman Myers.
So Kevin, I would like to offer then a friendly amendment that we would include C1. And with the understanding that any of these areas, zones, districts, they include the fact that they have to be inspected and approved, don't they?
Yes, they would. That is not in this code,
Yeah.
but in the other codes that we've been looking at and in the state code, yes, indeed it would.
Okay.
I guess I would just echo what Councilman Myers said, that I'd like to see C1 included in that as well.
So Bob, you're making that as a friendly motion.
That is correct.
Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Mayor, if I don't mean to interrupt, just ask a question. Kevin, you may have said it. I don't remember seeing this. We talked about this yesterday. You mentioned I-2. I-1 is included as well, is it not? And the reason I asked that question when we had the discussion with staff, and it's a minor item, but that the I-1 was not listed. So I just wanted to be.
It is in there.
Yes, in the ordinance, it's both
Okay, I take that
industrial
back.
district.
I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, some of the concerns from the Planning Commission that on a academic level, and I think that are true, is that were we to include something like the C1, another district like C1, that the kind of nature of the way this thing is breaking apart this year is an impediment to a lot of sales sites being established in areas that we may not want to see them otherwise, because we're running down really close to the deadlines, and you've got things you got to do and get. So there are regulating factors this year that certainly, but you know, would have an effect on how many operations we had in places that were maybe a little less appropriate on the planning level, not on the safety, but on the planning level. Because of course we do have inspections that ensure safety when it comes to these sales spots. But the commission will be, after we have this first event, we're going to know a little more, and we're going to be over the next few months looking at the different regulatory structure that maybe we could bring forward to the board that might be appropriate, and we're looking for input there.
Other questions for Kevin?
So our inclusions would be C1, C2, I1, I2, and our CS1 mall district.
Point of order then, Mayor, do we need to vote on the amendment?
We need to have a second to the friendly amendment first before we vote on it.
I would second that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Okay, now let's go back to the original motion. Any questions about that?
Yes. So back to these are always confusing to me, but back to the original motion, then do we need to vote it down in order for the amended motion to be accepted?
No, you
No.
voted on the amendment to
All right.
approve the amendment. Now we go back and pass the first reading, and then we'll waive the second and third in recommendation B.
That's
All right,
correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're ready to vote on the ordinance as presented with the friendly amendment. Take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Recommendation B, waive the second and third considerations, pass and adopt ordinance number 3123, 2017.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Item K on our agenda, this is an opportunity for anyone to address an item that's not on the agenda. We have one request from Jeremiah Jones. So you step to the microphone?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a concern about the way our city parks are being mowed and the way the complaints are handled. I called the city parks department on Friday and told them that the Bell Park wasn't mowed right, and I took pictures of it. I sent it to the park supervisor. In return, the park supervisor notified the police department and said I was harassing him. The police department called me on it. I got pictures of the screenshots of the text message and pictures of the park while I'm here.
Can I ask what not being mowed right means?
Oh, there's big chunks of grass everywhere. That's why I brought pictures so you can see it, if you want to. That's up to you guys. I mean, it
Mr.
just
Mayor?
looks horrible out there.
Mr. Mayor, can I speak to this, if you don't mind?
Certainly.
Sorry. Yeah, you and I spoke about this yesterday, and a couple of items just to reiterate what you and I had talked about. And that's two items to put in perspective. And one of them was the issue of Gene Rascher, our Parks Director, notifying the police. And as I shared with you, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute, as I shared with you, that was not right. That was something that should not have done. That is a public phone. The phone that I have, the city pays for, so that's not something that can be or should not be restricted then. Let me finish though. But the point to bear in mind, you did, and I did see them, you did send, let's just say, a couple of pretty forthright messages then to Gene regarding what the parks look like. And let me finish, because I want to make sure we put this in context. It is a matter of judgment, certainly, regarding the parks and what some view as it being mowed and maintained properly, and there are variations of the theme, and we can respect different opinions. As I indicated to you, this week Parks is going to go back and do some additional cutting. Two items, though. One is, as I shared with you, particularly at that west end, there's a great deal of water that collects. So it does make it difficult to mow. Obviously, you can't do that when the grass is wet or when it's underwater. And secondly, one of the items that those of us, the council members and Bob J. and myself went through, and we specified this with mowing, we have the Parks Department that maintains, obviously, the parks, as I said. We have 6 full-time park maintenance people. And then we have essentially 4 seasonals. If council may remember, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this, Jay, but one of the items I would emphasize, when I came on board, I did an analysis of the amount of acres relative to the number of park maintenance employees. It's a ratio. So the lower it is, that shows you the worse off you are. We ranked at the very bottom of those 10 cities that I had contacted with. So I want to put that in perspective. We do not have a plethora of park maintenance people that can mow and maintain these. They do the best they can, and they do a very good job. They also have other activities, though, in addition to the parks. And you and I did talk about that. But I do want to put in context the fact that what would happen in terms of calling the police department, that was not correct. I apologize to you. That should not have taken place. But as I said, they are going to go out there one day this week. I don't have their schedule, in my hip pocket. Don't know where it is, but they are going to come out.
That's fine. If you guys are so low manpower, why don't you guys get more people to help?
Well, one of the challenges you have is, I put this in perspective regarding the city's budget, and that's this. We went well over budget last year in this particular line item, particularly with contract mowing. And I want to point out that's something that we have emphasized not only with the Parks Department, we've emphasized with Water Pollution Control and Public Works. Let me just put a couple of items in perspective for you. When we move into the next fiscal year and the fiscal year beyond that, there's $190,000 less that will be coming into the general fund, less coming into the general fund because of the property tax rollback. In addition to that, we have a ratio, and this is Bob J's world, but we have a ratio in terms of the amount of money that we should have on the sidelines, quite frankly, in reserve. That ratio 2 years ago was about 18%, 19%. We're getting to the point now where that's near 17%. So while I can appreciate the fact that you're concerned about the mowing, at the same time, we have to make the numbers add up. And when that affects the general fund, which is related on business activity, that has a real impact. And when there are cuts that need to be made, one of them I will point out that we did, there were 180 lots that the city was mowing and maintaining. And that was something we brought to a screeching halt. We're undertaking a staffing analysis here at City Hall to try and trim our expenses. This falls within that panoply of areas then that we have to make difficult decisions.
Okay, like I say, all I wanted was the city parks to be mowed right, and all the other stuff. I mean, I wouldn't mow my yard like that. I get fined, pretty much. I mean, we're not asking for it to be the prettiest every time, but this is repeated. Just like when the city cuts trees down out there, they leave them laying down for weeks.
Well, as I said, the Parks Department is going to get back to that this week. I'm not going to argue with you about what. It falls within your judgment or anyone's judgment. Somewhat subjective whether or not what is mowed right in someone's mind, but we will get back out there.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I think we heard your idea. Anyone else that wants to address the council? Connie?
It's that invitation time of year again. So this upcoming Saturday, we are celebrating our second annual Church Street Spring Fling. It was a big success last year, thanks to the city and all of the cooperation that we received. So we'll be having again this year from 4 o'clock until 11 o'clock. And there'll be a band and lots of family events. And please come down and visit the Church Street businesses and celebrate them and support them. Next Saturday, we will be having Crazy Days in downtown Ottumwa. So we encourage you to come down. We've got probably, it sounds at this point, over 20 vendors that will be set up in front of the empty businesses in Main Street. And then the businesses on Main Street that are actively working are very excited about having Crazy Days back. And so they're very involved in this, and there'll be a carnival and so forth. So I just would like to invite all of you and the entire community to come forward and celebrate both the Church Street Spring Fling and the Crazy Days on Main Street. So I thank you very much. Yes.
Tanya, what was the date of the Church Street Spring Fling again?
That is, this is the 10th, this upcoming Saturday. And it's from 4 to 10, or 4 to 11, I apologize. And there will be a band and refreshments and just a really good time. So we hope you'll be able to join us. So, okay.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you very much.
I would also remind council and the general public that Saturday morning is the 25th celebration of the beach, and Gene Ratchey has a short program, and Councilman Myers has agreed to fill in for me since I will be out of town. And we'll do a little ceremony and recognition, and hope that you all come and celebrate the fact that we're getting the beach back in good shape and should be usable for many years to come. Any other comments for the good of the council or the city?
What was the date on that again, Mayor?
The 25th anniversary is this Saturday at 10 o'clock? 11 a.m. Thank you, Gene. At the beach. I'd like to start referring to it as our aquatic center since it's getting in such good shape now. Anything else for the good of the city? Okay, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
7:05 p.m. Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody.